Well, good afternoon, everybody. Live from Vermont here on LinkedIn, on Facebook, and on YouTube. So happy you could join me today. I usually start off with the weather report, and it's the same. Cold and cloudy here in Vermont. So what can I tell you? We're hoping for a white Christmas. Looks like the opposite's going to happen. We're going to end up going up to the 40s. So, there's the deal. That just happens. That's the way it is. So this is the part of the program where I kind of hang around, wait for you guys to show up a bit. Let me tell you what's going on in my life. I'm kind of excited about this. This is me on Saturday getting my first vaccine for COVID-19. I'm a first responder here in the town that I live in. I'm my EMT and a firefighter. And the state of Vermont got the act together pretty quickly. And here I am getting my vaccine, number one, 3 more weeks, number 2. Am I bragging about me? No. What I'm telling you folks is this: when the opportunity comes to get your vaccine, please go and get your vaccine and let's get on with life here. I've had, no side effects that I can really speak of. I'm feeling great. I'm excited about being able to get out there and playing again and doing things and seeing all of you in person as much as I love live stream. So with that, tell you what, we're going to do a shorter countdown today because I'm excited about my guest. I'll give you a little bit of a hint. This guy is a media pro. I'm going to give you a full introduction in just a moment. But this is some kind of training that everybody needs to have, but especially if you are in a key position as a CEO, as an entrepreneur, as someone who needs to speak to the media, as someone who needs to speak to people with a message. Eric's going to help us out. So he's going to be here in a few minutes. But before we do that, let's start the countdown. So being a leader, being in some kind of position where you have to message things, it is so key and important that you have a plan, that you know what you're going to say, that you say it professionally, that you think of all the ins and the outs. So today I've got a guest for you. He is going to help you with media preparedness. His name is Eric Cox. He's a media and communications veteran with over 20 years experience in related fields of TV news, PR, marketing, and on-air talent development for the news. His passion is helping people. He has worked at CBS affiliates in Boston and has worked with some of the legendary news anchors and reporters. He is the founder of Media Prepared, which is a culmination of 2 decades of working with some of the best in the field of media and PR. I'm super happy to have him here. He is a guy that has a lot of background in being in front of the camera, in coaching people in front of the camera. And so we're going to learn a lot from him today. So let's have him join me right now, Eric Cox. Hi, Eric.
Hello, Al. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely my pleasure. Eric, I always like to start with, I gave some of your background. Help us with the rest of the story. And also, geographically, where are you talking to us from today here on Al Getler Live?
Al, thank you. One of the things that I just realized as we were talking just prior to the show is that I'm excited, obviously, to share my story and my perspective, but I get the feeling that you and I are going to be able to geek out a little bit on news and video production and all the things that are near and dear to my heart.
Dude,
and really,
I'm going to stop you there for 1 second. Sorry to interrupt. Yes. You sent me some photographs in a Google Drive, right? And like a geek, I take your photographs and I blow them up on my screen, and I'm looking at your equipment. Total. The propeller on my little beanie is spinning around as I'm looking at it. So yes, absolutely, that's correct. Sorry, I interrupted.
No worries. No, absolutely, because this is a conversation. And, I like to tell people, I like to tell my clients that treat an interview like a conversation. It shouldn't be a game of ping pong where you hit a question over, I hit the answer back, right? It should be more like a conversation. So that's what has me excited. And obviously, talking about my passion, which is helping people be the best versions of themselves when it matters the most. And that's what media training is in a phrase. And, I go a little bit deeper than that. Really, I want people to have a mindset and adopt a mindset. And the name of that mindset that I've come up with is command your moment. Hashtag command your moment. And it's really a mindset. It's really bringing the best of what you have, all of your knowledge, your background. Lean in on your strengths, and I'll work with you to help you build up places where you're challenged. And sometimes the first challenge is doing just what we're doing, right? Accepting the opportunity, having a camera in your face, and having to speak clear, concise, and compelling about yourself, your brand, your product, your organization, your cause, whatever it is you're trying to let people know about. Get you in a mindset where you're going to be able to do that in a fantastic way.
And I love that, command your moment, because here's the bottom line. No one knows who's watching your moment when the moment happens. Plus, with what we're doing right now, we are live streaming, but once we're done, this video is out there in the stratosphere going on and on and on. So, this is a moment we have together, and you and I don't know who's watching and what could lead to be your next client or opportunity. So it's so true. I love that phrase. It's absolutely spectacular. So tell me how you've, before we get into the mechanics of it, because I know today we're even going to try a little bit of it, which I'm really excited about. So tell me just a bit more about your background and again, where you are, where you're talking to us from, so folks have a perspective just on that.
Absolutely. So right now I'm in my home studio here in Lawrence, Massachusetts, in the Merrimack Valley, in northeastern Massachusetts. And I started in this business, as you mentioned, at WBZ TV, CBS Boston, in 95. So 25 years ago now, I started in the business. I worked with some of the legends of local TV news that I grew up watching. And if anyone grew up in the Boston area, they know Liz Walker and Bob Lobel and Jack Williams and Joyce Cole-Haywick and Barry Burbank, people who are legends in TV news. Those were my colleagues. So that was my first experience in TV news, and it couldn't have been better for me because these guys were the pros.
No doubt about it. No doubt about it. My wife and I have lived in several major markets. We were born in New York City. We lived in Philly. We lived in Columbus, Ohio, which was, NBC O&O. And then, of course, in the Boston market, which, to me, it's Boston, New York. It doesn't get any bigger and kind of more pressure behind the camera and production and on air and all that. And with the names you mentioned, I know them all, just incredible that you're a part of that. I also am excited to hear, I didn't realize you were in Lawrence, Massachusetts.
Yes, sir. Well, I know you mentioned Andover a little bit earlier. So,
well, let me tell you,
we were neighbors.
Well, my office was right up the street from you. I was at the Eagle Tribune, right there in North Andover.
I know exactly where it is.
Yeah, and I'm happy to tell you that I am one of the few people you may have met that the mayor put an official proclamation out when I left, saying it was a great new deal in Boston because Mayor Willie Lentigo was the mayor at the time, and unfortunately we covered him quite a bit in our newspaper. He was glad to see me.
A lot to cover.
Yeah, well, he was glad
a lot to cover there.
Yeah, yes, there was. And by the way, I love the city of Lawrence. I love the people of Lawrence. Mayor Dan Rivera is still a really good friend of mine. Just saw him right as COVID was hitting. So thrilled to know you're coming from Lawrence again, which is one of my favorite places with some great people. So that's fantastic. So you get into this business, and we were talking a little bit before we turned the camera on. You became an entrepreneur like a lot of people do. And I think it's okay if I say it because I've been down this road before in the media as well. My position has ended suddenly several times in my career. My kids were just here. We were talking about reinvention. You reinvented yourself, and what you reinvented yourself with, I'll put the website up here, is Media Prepare. You started this business with that opportunity. Tell us something about that, and tell us what brought you to entrepreneurship.
Yeah, so as you mentioned, I was working in corporate America. I was a director of marketing, and suddenly and unexpectedly, they didn't need a director of marketing anymore. And
Uh-huh.
so I had already started sort of in my mind to formulate what it would be like if I started a business, maybe as a side hustle, or maybe something that I wanted to build with other people working behind the scenes. Um, and all of a sudden, I was faced with basically a fork in the road: go back into corporate America, or really go forward with this business. And one thing, Al, that I'll adjust what you said is I didn't recreate myself. I think that this is sort of the fullest manifestation of what I have been doing all of my career. And that's why I knew it was right when I finally decided to take that plunge. It's hard. Let me just tell you, it's hard to cut that corporate cord, right? There's nothing like a good set of benefits and a steady paycheck and all those good things that come along. But, you know, things that you can hold on to can also tie you up. So,
No, absolutely.
So I was glad that, you know, I was not necessarily glad about the circumstances, but looking back, that's what was supposed to happen. That's what's led me to this moment right here with you.
You know, I love what you just said too. About the comfort of the corporate benefits, the comfort of the corporation, the whole thing that goes with that. And then I love that people say, "Oh, look at you now, though, Eric. You've got your own business. You can set your own hours. You can do whatever you want," which usually equates to you can work from 16 to 18 hours a day. You can take a break to bite a sandwich and get back to whatever it is you're doing at the moment. I wish now that I had put your home studio on some slides, because I think people would get an idea too of what it takes, the ingenuity, the space, just to figure out how to do this, what we're doing right now. And maybe we have you come back sometime and just talk about, all of that and what it takes to get it done. Now, let me stop and say too, you too do some live streaming. Tell us about that and when you do it and what the name of the show is.
Thank you. I do a show. I started it about 10 weeks ago just because I needed to do a little bit of practice in what I was preaching.
Yeah.
I tell people all the time, they ask me, hey, I want to do a vlog, or I want to do I want to make videos, I want to do something. I'm like, well, then just do it. You have everything you need right now. There's nothing stopping you but you. So I wanted to put into practice something that I have been preaching for years and years. If you are interested in doing video production, if you're interested in making videos, if you have something that you're passionate about, that you want to talk to people about, start today. You can do it. And you can do it live or you can do it recorded. It doesn't matter. I decided to do a little bit of live streaming because we're in a pandemic. People are having to get on Zooms. I said, you know what? I'm going to start a show. The name of my show is the Wednesdays at 1 show. And as you can guess, it's every Wednesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. And I stream it live to my Facebook, to my YouTube, and now to Twitch. And I'm going to talk about Twitch a little bit later, but the reason that I did it is because I wanted to bring people in. I have all these great conversations with friends and colleagues and people that I meet and clients, and I just wanted to have some of those conversations on camera. It serves two purposes. Number one, it shows people what's possible. But number two, it gives people an opportunity to come into a safe space. I'm never going to embarrass you or ask you something crazy. You're never going to look bad on the Wednesdays at 1 show. And you get to do it sort of in baby steps. Maybe it gives you some impetus to do your own live stream. Because if I can do it, believe me, anybody can.
Now, did I get that right? The Wednesdays at 1 show?
That's right, sir.
As you know, my vast graphics department here is working behind the scenes. Some days
I think I have the same. I think I employ the same department.
My voice is a little off today. Otherwise, I would bring him up here and show you who the graphics department is. And so anybody that knows my shows knows that he pops in once in a while. But yeah, I mean, I think that's exactly right. I love the kind of the just do it aspect of it all. I mean, look. You're sitting right now home more than ever during COVID. Probably most people are, especially during the shutdown period of time. I mean, what a period of time to just do something. Eric, the reason I'm here today is the exact same reason. I'm part of a networking group At one point, we talked about especially getting on LinkedIn Live. I was able to get approved fairly quickly because of some things I had done in the past. Facebook, YouTube, and I'm experimenting right now. It's exactly what I'm doing with you. We are figuring this thing out together, and that's why you look at my studio is far better looking than yours. But the thing is that we learn all this stuff together as a community. Some folks might not know we are on StreamYard right now. There's a community of people. We talk all the time about how to make this a better experience. It's also democracy, right? We both come from a media background. This is the ultimate in the First Amendment in that we have freedom of speech and we have a way to express it. So I think it's pretty cool all the way around. So let me get off my high horse there, my soapbox. Before I give a
before you get off your soapbox, let me just hit it right back at you because I have to give you all the credit in the world. Just learning a little bit about you before coming on the show, you were tasked with the goal of streaming something live every day for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks, and you're doing it. I mean, I do one show for 1 hour a week, and you would think, at the end of it, you would think I had just gone through an exorcism or something. It's so much I have to pour into it to make it seem halfway decent, right? But you're doing this every day, so I got to give props back to you, Al, for the work that you're doing and that you're just taking the plunge. I really, really admire that type of initiative. Well,
let me tell you very quickly why, and you'll get this because you've worked in a newsroom. Okay, you've worked in the media. The excitement of that every day. I'm a consultant in the business now. I work with a fantastic company. I love what I do. I just am passionate about what I do. I'm on the revenue side with that, and I love it. I have a lot of other passions in my life. I mentioned, the first responder thing, all that, But to me, doing this every day is the jazz that I used to get showing up at 7:00 at the newspaper every day and going home at 7:00 at night. And when our news story broke or whatever, being first, right, being so competitive, that's an energy that I know from your years in the business. So that's why I find doing it every day. People have said to me, how do you do this? Well, I just love it. Yeah, you're exhausted when you're done. You're right. You're exhausted. For anybody who's watching who thinks Eric is not exhausted, Wednesdays at 2:00, it's tiring. It absolutely is tiring. So Eric, let me ask you, if I reach out to you though, as not a member of the media, but I run the company down the street there in Lawrence, Massachusetts that, let's say manufactures either a food product or another product, and there's a whole area there between Broadway and going out to 93. I can't remember that strip of road there, but you know what I'm talking about. Heads out to the hotel, but there's a bunch of companies back there. I'm running one of those companies, and one day something happens and the media is in my front foyer, on the front step of my business. Take it from there. Tell me how you help people like that and what your business does to get people prepared for that moment.
Absolutely. So what I do is at that point, I put on my PR hat and I let people know that if you are in a crisis situation, and what you're talking about is crisis communications, one of the first things you want to do is not pour gasoline on a fire, right? You want to come to the media with clear messaging, truthful messaging, and don't overstep what your parameters are. So if you say have a situation that involves maybe the authorities, right? We teach people right away, don't speculate, don't guess, don't give your theories, defer to authorities if it's something that involves outside authorities. Secondly, get familiar with the things that you feel comfortable saying. And when I say feel comfortable, that means that it's the truth and it's something that can't be necessarily disputed or later on, found out later to be something that's not true. So it really becomes about messaging, message discipline, word choice, and of all things, demeanor. Right?
Yeah,
you are communicating with your body, whether you know it or not. You're communicating on a bunch of different levels, But your attire, your body language, your facial expression, the choice of words that you use, those all send their own messages. So just getting control of who and what you are and what it is you want to say.
Right. Now, let me ask you too, in a situation where someone is a leader of a larger organization or something very severe happens, and I mean, I guess I'm painting the picture, but the CEO probably should be off taking care of that. Is that when the CEO also looks towards maybe someone like you or someone within their organization to be a spokesperson first and then address the media at day 2 or day 3 when things have calmed down? Is that fair advice to someone like that?
100%, Al. You know your stuff. Oftentimes, there is a person that is designated as the spokesperson. And to be honest with you, often the CEO is the exact wrong person to be the spokesperson. Because as you said, number one, they should be front and center addressing any crisis that's going on. And number two, a person who's responsible for the messaging for the company, they can focus just on that. They don't necessarily have to focus on the reconciliation of the crisis. They can just take the information, share it with the public in a way that is not going to exacerbate an already bad situation. And they've already been trained. They've worked with me or someone like me in their message discipline, their talking points, and just steering clear of those troubled waters that, let me just tell you, and you've seen it over and over, Al, people steer into their own troubled waters, right? And any good journalist who's out there, they're not necessarily out there to do got you journalism.
Right.
But if you crack the door open to controversy, sure, any good journalist worth their salt is going to kick that door open.
Absolutely.
Right? So I'm trying to keep people away from their own friendly fire a lot of the times.
It's so funny you bring that up, because I went to media training as an executive, ironically, for the corporation that owned us, owned a lot of other things as well. So they brought some executives together. We had communication training for the media with a guy named Michael Sheehan, if you've ever heard of his name. Look him up. Pretty classic. I don't think he's at it anymore. But anyway, that being said, he showed a video clip of the CEO of the power company that ran 3 Mile Island when the 3 Mile Island disaster happened. This is for anybody who's not aware. Nuclear power plant, Pennsylvania. A big nuclear accident occurred. The guy shows up on Good Morning America the next morning. Okay? He's in New York City live with the host. The disaster's going on in Pennsylvania. And this was brought up as the best example of how not to do it. So fast forward to this year, I'm talking to students in a college, on the live stream a lot like this with their classroom. And they say to me, you know what? We just saw that clip. They're still showing it today. So I don't know if it's out there on YouTube. I never looked. But there's a great example of a guy who should never have even been in front of the camera, correct? I mean, how does someone deal with a disaster that big and think they should be in front of a camera? So a lot of us can't relate to that. How about a small business, Eric? What should a small business owner be thinking about when it comes to messaging?
So a small business should always be thinking about what is best for the company. They should be really well versed in what I recommend 3 to 5 good talking points about themselves, the company, their product, anything that has to do with the company. And they should be adroit enough to be able to take those 3 to 5 talking points and literally answer any question that they've been asked. Not necessarily in a crisis situation. No. That's a very specialized situation, right? But just in a general sense. And what I tell people is, for media training works for the media. It works for a cocktail party. It works anytime you're in front of an audience, a microphone, or a camera. Or if you're on the soccer sidelines of your kid's game on a Saturday morning.
Love it.
It all works. And so you always want to be messaging in a way that reflects favorably on your company. And I'll give you, if you have a moment, I'll give you an example
Yeah, please
of
do.
today's not necessarily a 3 Mile Island, but probably about 3 or 4 years ago, there was a show on Netflix that had the main character in the show, the star of the show, was accused of some sexual harassment, sexual assault. And it just so happened that a big executive, he was like the vice president in charge of like children's programming or whatever. He was his daughter's soccer coach. And during a game, after the game, a woman came up to him and said, do you work at Netflix? And he said, yeah, I do. And he goes, well, why haven't you fired this gentleman? His name is Danny Masterson. Why haven't you fired Danny Masterson for all, the allegations and everything like that? And he said, this is no joke. He said, well, we don't believe the accuser. It just so happened that the woman asking him the questions was the accuser.
Wow.
So the irony there was, he said, well, we don't believe the accuser. The one word that ultimately got him fired almost immediately, the one word that got him fired was we.
Yeah. Right.
And the irony is that he was fired before the star who had the allegations was fired.
Wow.
So that's how important your messaging, when you represent an entity, that's how important every single word is.
Yeah. Now, let me ask you a different question altogether, off the media completely. This comes to mind. My daughter works in the startup, realm of digital marketing. I know a number of people that do. I've worked with a number of people that do. You mentioned on your website too, I think in a blog post, about how this is effective for people who are even doing a pitch meeting for financing, for, help investors in their business. So how does that differ in any way, or does it differ in any way from the 5 points you mentioned for a small business person? Or how do you craft that message?
Absolutely. So one of my favorite sayings in business is, how you do anything is how you do everything. If you're sloppy in your presentation, then you're probably going to run a sloppy business. If you're buttoned up and you're to the point and you know your audience, most importantly, the mistake I see most entrepreneurs make when they're talking to potential funders, or maybe they're in a pitch competition, is that they're the founder. It's their baby. They're immersed in it. They want to tell you every little thing about their company because it's all that they've lived and breathed for whatever time before they do this, they come to this moment. And so what you have to learn as an entrepreneur, particularly when you're speaking to funders, is they assume that you have passion about your business. They assume that you have knowledge about your business. So they don't need to hear that from you. What they really want to know, what any funder really wants to know, is, if I give you money, how am I getting my money back?
Yeah.
How am I going to make money? Right?
Makes perfect sense.
It doesn't matter about how passionate or how knowledgeable you are. They assume that. That's flyover country. They've already passed that stage. They just want to know, how am I going to get, if I give you money, how am I getting it back?
Yeah.
How am I going to make money from this? And that's the number one mistake that I see entrepreneurs make, is that they're usually in this insulated world where they're just talking to their team or each other or themselves about their business. So when they finally have to come up for air, they're telling you everything. Nobody cares.
Right.
Not that we don't think you're a good person, but just get to the point.
Yeah, no, it makes total sense. Absolute total sense. So let me ask you then, can you help me by showing me how you would construct this? I know you mentioned that there may be a way to kind of give us an example of how this works.
Yeah, so what I want to show you guys is just what I've been able to sort of glean just during the pandemic. At the beginning of this pandemic, I didn't have a studio in my home. At the beginning of this pandemic, I wasn't doing any live streaming. At the beginning of this pandemic, I was doing, Zooms like everybody else. But what I have been able to do over time is just sort of marshal all of the powers of the internet and all that's possible in the live streaming world. And I've been able to come up with some pretty good things that are difference makers in terms of how we present in this box. Me, Al, I bet you're the same way. You're a guy who wants to be in the room. That's where your superpower is. I want to be in the room too, but I also want to change the room a little bit. Do you know what I mean? I want to be where I am and what I'm talking about, be in the environment, right? Just imagine, right? Imagine I'm a bartender, or I'm a liquor rep, or I'm an event planner, or an event space proprietor. And I can put myself right in the space and make my pitch to you in a way that's much more compelling. And I might just get a bottle off this shelf here while I'm at it and pour a nice and do a nice demo for you right here, right now. Just getting into this space, same space, right? And making it more compelling. These are the things that I work with my clients on all the time. I'm working on a project, a virtual bar crawl. So you can imagine taking your space that nobody's in anymore, because we're not allowed right at this moment, and bringing it to you virtually and really placing yourself, and by extension them, in the space, and make that presentation just that much more compelling.
Now, Eric, that's really helpful, or hurtful, I should say, because back when I was single, when I walked into a bar, that's what it looked like after about 2 minutes. So that's really hurtful.
I don't believe it. I do not believe it. But I'm going to tell you right now, this is as cool as I'll ever be in any bar, is virtually. So I will take it.
Yeah, the lighting is gorgeous. The background is great. It's the most believable virtual I have seen yet. And you haven't left your house, dude. That's incredible.
I have not.
Great.
So that was just a little bit of a demo that I wanted to, show to people about what's possible, right?
Yeah.
Basically, everything is possible. Anything is possible. And
I wish I had the shot that you sent me. And I guess if I were fast enough, I could probably try to pull it up. But, the equipment that you're doing that with, and this is for anybody that wants to geek out with us. I mean, you have a green screen behind you, and you have a pretty
I'll show you the green screen.
What's that?
I'm happy to show you the green screen, because really I want to take the veneer away from. You don't need a lot of special equipment. You don't need special powers. You need a green sheet to hang up behind you.
Wow, that's amazing. That's truly amazing.
Right?
And that's how you do it.
And from here, this is the basis of it right here. You start here, and then you can go wherever you want, wherever you're only limited by your own imagination and creativity.
It's truly amazing. It really is. I mean, that is fantastic that you've done that. I'm trying to pull up quickly. I'm not going to succeed. I wanted to show your setup, but that's we'll save that for another time. It's incredible that you've done that, and that you make it look so easy. And I probably need some lighting advice from you as well, as I kind of bump around through this. But there's so much more advice you can give people. So, Eric, let me ask you, I have your URL up here. Is that the best place to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can get me at you can go right to my website and get in contact with me, or you can email me directly, Eric@MediaPrepared. I'm at Media Prepared on all the platforms. And so, I'm very, very easy to get in contact with if you just know Media Prepared. If you just search for Media Prepared, you're going to find me. Now, but let me just tell you, Al, since you bring that up. By the way, I'm terrible at my own marketing. I wholeheartedly cop to that. This will be my resolution for 3 years running now. Get better at all of my marketing.
Well, you're younger than me, but there's an old saying that says the cobbler's kids have no shoes, right? Or to modernize it, the mechanic's wife's car is the one that always breaks down, meaning we never get a chance to actually do our own thing. But you're doing it right now, Eric. You're on here with me. As I said to you in our email, you've got tons of video clips, chop them up, put them on social media and make them work. But let me ask you, though, if I'm sitting there right now listening to you, and I'm a little hesitant to reach out to you, What do I need to know when it comes to working with you? What's the starting point? Do I need to have a big giant message put together? What do I need to know to work with Eric Cox in this type of environment?
Absolutely. One of the things that I pride myself in is that when you come to me, it's not going to be like the movie Pretty Woman, where it's a total makeover, right? I try to meet each and every person right where they are right at that moment. And that's where we build from. We find out what your strengths are. We find out what your goals are. From there, I have a couple of ways that I go forward with clients. I have what's called a media power hour, which I love. It's actually about 90 minutes, but a media power hour is a little catchier. And it's about 90 minutes of really good, just basic training, basic media training. What you need to do, what you need not to do. Here are some techniques. Here are some things that I try to pull the curtain back from the interview. It's not something that's intimidating, as we were saying earlier. It's really a conversation.
Sure.
There are really ways to formulate every single answer to every single question. You're never going to know the questions in advance for the most part.
Right.
But when you come out of that power hour, you're going to be equipped to answer any question under any circumstance, and you're going to feel good about it too.
Yeah. And that's huge. Absolutely huge. Well, Eric, it has been an absolute pleasure having you here today. I want to be respectful of your time, but I also want to have you back so we can geek out a little bit and maybe talk about equipment, because this is extremely empowering, and I think it's one of those things where people, like you say, the hesitancy to do something. I commend you for doing your show. We put that up there right now again. Wednesday at 1 show, and that's on again Facebook and YouTube.
Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. And I said I was going to mention Twitch earlier. Twitch is really what inspired me to get fully creative with my space, because in Twitch a lot of it is for gamers, and a lot of it is for DJs, people playing music. So gamers watching a gamer game and watching a DJ spin records is probably one of the most boring things that you can look at. But what they do is they make their space so compelling that you want to watch. Yeah. And I'm watching these, and these are mainly kids, young kids. I'm watching them, I'm like, why am I not, how do they do, why, how do I get there? And they really, these young gamers and young DJs inspired me and got me to a place where now I can really fill my virtual space with really no limits.
And you really bring up an important point there, and I said I was going to let you go, and I'm holding you, but it's so important, guys with my color hair especially. Okay, there is so much happening so quickly. I mean, just watch TikTok for 5 minutes.
Yes.
And
yes.
People who are younger, the Gen Zers, obviously even millennials are starting to feel a little old now. Okay. You've got to dive into this head first, because it's where we are today, and it's so important in media. It's not a big deal to put a 15-year-old on with us. If I pressed a button and we added a 15-year-old, they would be as articulate as some of the people we see as adults on TV. It's incredible. So really great point that you bring that. I'm not familiar with Twitch. I'm going to have to get familiar with it. Thank you for pushing me. I think that's a really great point. So good stuff.
Yes, please do. And Al, let me just tell you, you're doing fantastic. First of all, you have hair, so you got a point on me. You're a point up on me there.
2 more payments and it's mine, brother.
But secondly, I have to reiterate, I was doing none of this at the beginning of the pandemic. None of it. I would occasionally do media trainings virtually, but they were usually one-on-one. It'd be FaceTime or sometimes Zoom or the traditional platforms, but that was probably like 1 out of every 10.
Right.
And so I was doing none of this at the beginning. So it's not the unreachable star.
Yep.
Right? It's not the impossible dream. Everybody has the ability to do it. If they do just what you're doing, Al, just start. Just do it.
Yeah. No, that's very inspirational. I hope people hear that. Eric, I'm going to put it up here one more time. Your website is mediaprepared.com. your show. The Wednesdays at 1 show. I want people to go ahead and reach out and watch that. I think that's incredible that you're doing that as well. I'm going to have you head backstage here. I want to say a proper goodbye to my audience and then a proper goodbye to you. All right. Talk soon. Take care. What an amazing guy. First of all, I'm blown away. He's in Lawrence, Massachusetts. I am just blown away. It's just, I can't even, anybody that's watching this that knows the time that I spent at the North Media Business Group is I left my heart there, and I just love the area. So it's fantastic that Eric was here. Eric is I'm telling you folks, he is giving you a very important message. Know what you're going to say before you say it. Be prepared as a leader of a company. So important. We see so many people out there that do a poor job of really, making their message known. So that's really important stuff. So let me tell you what's going to happen this week. I may or may not be back tomorrow, thinking of doing kind of a best of show, having a couple of friends pop in. Not sure if that's going to happen yet, but we are going to take a little break during the holiday season here. I will be back next Wednesday at noon. And it's going to be a list of the things you should be thinking about for your SEO this year, your search engine optimization, with Gary Ma, who's a friend. And I've enjoyed getting to know Gary. He's going to have some great advice, as we all need to depend on SEO, as we were just talking about with Eric. It's a whole world out there, and we got to conquer it. With that, I want to thank you very much for being here today. If I don't see you tomorrow, have a really wonderful holiday season, and I'll see you back here soon on Al Getler Live. Thanks, and take care.